Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
Hello, I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and I have three special guests today. And the first is Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps from the 1st District, and Devorah Crable. She's president of Know Your Power Vote, and Freddie Derosiers, and she is also with Chicago Votes. Welcome to On the Case.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to be talking about the proposal of this proposed bill that was begun by Dr. Joanne Roberts, who could not make it tonight. She worked very hard to get this bill introduced to the House, and the House, it was Representative Kimberly Duplay is the one who pushed it through the House. It passed. It is now in the Senate, and it was introduced by Senator Robert Peters, so I'm grateful to the both of them. So, Commissioner, you were the one, too, who began with your activism to really get this thing going. Tell me, what was your role in this?
Well, thank you for having me. My role in this was that Joanne Roberts said that they needed a champion. We needed somebody that was really going to be boots on the ground and talk about how important this legislation would be for our children. I am a veteran Chicago public school teacher. It was my work with the Chicago Teachers Union that brought me out of the classroom and then on to becoming a Cook County Commissioner. So I'm very invested in what happens with young people. And so as a part of that, we went to Collins and we did a press conference and we registered hundreds of young people at Corliss High School. That was first. And then we had an announcement on a morning show program, and that was another one. And then finally, most recently, we had a huge voter registration drive in the Proviso Township School District 209, where we all partnered. Know Your Power, Know Your Vote. Me and Joanne Roberts and Latina Brady Pettis, who also passed the legislation for Teen Voter Registration Day, which is September 10th, and we were able to register over 300 young people. And then we had a huge rally that was led by a young person, and we had a marching band, and it was just amazing. Since then, the bill has picked up so much steam, and as a part of our May Day activities at PUSH, May 1st, we will be having the young people to scan the QR code to continue their support of this critical legislation.
And so where do you get the QR code?
Well, Dr. Roberts and Devorah Crable have these cards, these QR codes. I'm sure that we can get them to you. I don't have it sitting in front of me right now, but there are QR codes, and you simply scan the QR code and it'll take you right to a document where you can add your name to a growing list of thousands of people who are saying we need this legislation passed now, that this legislation can revolutionize our engagement in youth voter turnout, that we can use this legislation in classrooms all across our great state of Illinois, this blue state that is holding the line on democracy in our country. And by having our young people graduate with both the diploma and their voter registration card, and increasing the engagement in high school can really, really turn the tide in what we're seeing happen in our electoral politics.
And how important is it to have the youth come out and vote, in your opinion?
It is the game changer. This is what I say to everyone. A couple things, actually. A, that our survival is at the intersection of the lived experience and resources of our elders and the innovation, curiosity, and courage of our young people. When you put those two things together, We can survive this. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as wonderful as I think I am, this administration that we're living under really ain't really checking for black women in their 50s. However, they are firing them.
Yes.
But they want our children. This country is coming for our future. But they got to go through us to get it. So we are the vanguard to protect our young people. But in protecting them, we also got to arm them with the tools so they can have some say and some agency in their future. And that is their voting rights. As we very well know, this right was not given to us. This right was fought for us. And we've been able to walk into the inheritance of that fight. We are now charged with a similar fight. And we have to do it so that our children, American citizens and all, can be able to cash in on the promise of this country. But right now, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, the check that America has written is coming back insufficient funds. And so we must endow our young people with the understanding that they are the products of a currency that they have every right to cash in on in this country.
That's beautiful. But, there's another fight, too, you brought to my mind about the draft that's coming up, mandating the draft of all men at a certain age. I think it was 18 to 25, come December 1st. And that's the Trump executive order. How do you feel about that?
I feel horrible about it, but I don't understand how black people didn't understand that was coming.
What do you mean?
I need us to pay attention to what this man is doing. And he's not doing it alone. So it's not Trump by himself. There is an agenda in this country, right? And this country has no problem getting itself into all kind of tears and traumas and fights and wars with other folk. And our babies pay the price for it. They pay the price for it in Vietnam. They paid the price for it in World War II. And they will pay the price for it if we don't fight against it right now. And so I am dead set against a draft because they will not be drafting white children of privilege. They'll be able to dodge the draft like Trump did. But the children who will get drafted into this madness will be our babies. It will also be those brown babies who they want to act like is causing the problem. And what is so criminal to me in this country is the ignorance that we allow to just invade our everyday. And what do I mean by that? I mean that whenever this country has an issue, the wedge issue becomes immigration. They make immigration the monster under the bed, right? However, Indians are walking around like they don't fear ICE. Polish people that can't speak English don't fear ICE. Ukrainians, and there was 40,000 of them that came over with all rights and privileges when the 15,000 Venezuelans came over. They're not feeling threatened by ICE. The only people that are feeling threatened by ICE are black immigrants from Haiti, from Ghana, from Africa, and Latino immigrants, black and brown people. So European immigrants are not feeling the fear of this immigration that black folks are feeling. Immigrants from other countries that are black are not feeling. And so this country keeps putting out these litmus tests to see how much they can do, how much they can get away with. And until we get real serious, we ain't serious enough. We ain't scared enough. We ain't angry enough. And I don't mean black women when I say that, because we always do what we're supposed to do. And since the infancy of this country, black women have been consistent. Since the infancy, the birth of this country, black women have been consistent. Black women have told the lie. And so as much as there is a war against women in this country that white women seem to be oblivious to, there's most certainly a war on black women in this country. And so we really do have to be in communication about how we protect ourselves as we get fired from our jobs, as our education gets threatened, as our work gets threatened, as our health care gets threatened, as maternal child care and our maternal health is threatened, and even as we get killed in our own homes by people who say they love us. So there is a war on Black women in this country, and we, the 92% of us, must be on the front line to protect each other and our children.
What does that protection look like, Commissioner? What does that look like? What do we need to do?
You know what that protection looks like, and this is what I remind, our people of. There was a time in this country when Black people built themselves up and didn't have public aid. They didn't have a grant. They didn't have a federal nothing. They had the sweat of their brow. They had their innovation. They had their pride, and they had their tenacity, and they had their interdependence on each other. That's what it looks like. It means, how do you go back to cooking? How do you go back to gardening? How do you go back to planting? How do you go back to those lessons from our foremothers and our forefathers that we need right now to get us over? There are things that we can do for ourselves that will remediate our dependency on the enemy.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about the 355,000 Black women that the president has fired, many of whom are in single mother households.
They run the spectrum, but do y'all understand that it's bigger than the women that got fired? That the women that got fired is a direct connection to the Black women that raised $40 million for Kamala Harris in 24 hours, which is a direct connection to the 92% of Black women that voted for Kamala Harris in the closest election in history. So to tell it in isolation look like, oh my God, they're just firing Black women. No, they're trying to disempower Black women, because Black women, unlike anybody else, know how to double down on their power. And they saw that when Black women raised $40 million for Kamala Harris in 24 hours. Now, mind you, this woman only had 100+ days to get ready for a presidential race. She raised the most amount of money. She brought out a whole different contingency of people to vote. And it was the closest election in recent history.
Do you think she should run again?
How do you
think she should run again?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think she should run until she get tired. I think she got every right to decide her future. And I'm gonna tell you something. I had the pleasure last weekend at the Power Rising conference that was held in Chicago, that was put on by Mignon Moore and Leah Garrity. I think I'm saying the name right. It was incredible. And Leah interviewed Kamala. And no, she did not say, I'm going to run again. But what she did say is, I hate to lose. And I hate that this country has been turned over to this criminal. And she thanked us. And she said, and Leah said, so what are you doing? She said, well, I just go around the country and listen to people. I go around the country and listen to people. And she told a story about a woman she was in the grocery store with. And she was putting things in the basket and just talking about how this attack on us shows up in our baskets. It shows up in our light bill. It shows up in our gas bill. It shows up in our inability to pay for college tuition. It shows up in all these different ways. But on this particular time, she said, look, she said, well, what do you eat? You're shopping for your children. What do you eat? She said, I eat what my children don't eat. That's in 2026. Wow. In Jackson, Mississippi, Kamala was having this conversation with this woman. And so I say to Black women what I say to anybody: what we gonna do for each other until our help comes? Because we are our own medicine. We are our own rescue. Like nobody is. We got the cape. We got the power. We birthed the babies. We got the degrees. We got the ingenuity. And so whatever is going to happen in our homes, in our schools, in our towns, in our cities, in our villages, in our counties, and in this country is going to be based on what Black women do or don't do. And that is going to be the determining factor. And guess what? The enemy knows that. That's why they've been hell-bent on it. We got to own our own power. And one of the things Kamala said, and it kind of alluded to this, the Democratic Party got to pony up because we carrying them, and they know that. Without Black women, you don't have a Democratic Party, period. Without Black women, and you surely don't have anybody that's going to be capable of running and winning an election, in the same kind of fashion. They gotta find some white boy to prop up, but they'll do that,
Okay.
That ain't hard for them to do. I want Black women to walk around with the confidence of a mediocre white man. That's what I want us to do.
All right, we have to take a break. We'll be back with more right after this, and then we'll be going to Deborah Crable, president of Know Your Power Vote. We'll be back right after this.
Peace and love. I'm Michelle Renee, host of Education Nation, live on the Female Solution Global Network every second and fourth Sunday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. The intention of Education Nation is to raise awareness about the literacy crisis and to offer information to combat the problem. The goal is to awaken an army of reading coaches and mentors. You will experience guests who are doing their part in the community to ensure youth in their circles are reading and thinking critically. I look forward to serving you in this capacity. Literacy is freedom, and Education Nation will offer information and strategies to help ensure our young people stay free.
We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network called 727-731-5192. We want to talk to you.
All right, we're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and you're listening to Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps from the 1st District and Devorah Crable, president of Know Your Power Vote, and Freddie Derosiers from Chicago Vote. Welcome again to On the Case. Devorah, what have you been doing with this bill? What was your role in this bill?
Well, first, allow me to say thank you for having us on, Chinta, and I acknowledge you as being one of Chicago's great legacy journalists, and I just want to salute you for all of your work and accomplishments over the years. And to Commissioner Stamps, I also want to acknowledge you and your leadership with advancing this bill, and was there to receive the resolution when you presented it before the Cook County Board of Commissioners just last week. And that just gives you an indication of her power, her influence, and her dedication to moving forward with a bill that means so much, not only to the students here in Chicago, throughout the state and across the country. And to my colleague in this fight, Miss Freddie, you know, she goes by Freddie. She just a first name like Cher and Oprah because she's that popular within the legislative community for all of her work in helping to shepherd this bill through success. It made it through the House and is now Senate bound under the leadership of Senator Robert Peters. Well, this whole thing, as you asked, Chinta, started with Know Your Power vote back in 2024 when I had launched a voter registration initiative to get people to vote for Kamala Harris. I think it's very generic, with the open arms and inviting everyone to participate to vote. It was Dr. Roberts who said, "You're missing the key population. You need to just simply target these young people because this vote, our future, is in their hands." And I got her message loud and clear. So as soon as the 2024 election was over, I promised to help her on to move this legislation. And I have to tell you, she has been a powerhouse in moving this legislation forward. It has been a most interesting, intriguing, educational, and inspiring journey. And I'm so glad that we're able to do this for the students here in Chicago and Illinois.
Yes, thank you. And so we've been joined too by Freddie, and say, please correct me if I'm mispronouncing your name, Derosiers. How do you say? We're not hearing you.
You want to have mute?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Derosiers.
Say it again.
Derosiers.
Okay, I was wrong. Now, what was your role?
Okay.
What was your role in this whole process of getting this bill to the Senate now?
Yeah, so just to introduce myself quickly, my name is Freddie or Frederic Derosiers. I'm the policy director with Chicago Votes. I work on different campaigns to expand access to democracy, especially to young people and folks who are impacted by our American legal system. And I'm a proud member of the Coalition for the Reverend Jesse Jackson Young Voter Empowerment Law. And my role on the committee is all of us just do a lot of work outreach to legislators, outreach to members in our community to try to organize folks to get them to send letters to their lawmakers, and just kind of move this legislation forward.
And in your opinion, why is it important for young people to come out and vote?
It's so important for young people to come out and vote because all young people are impacted by the systems that the people in power vote for. We are impacted by so many different things. And so when we look at this bill, I think it's about creating a culture of civic engagement among young people, because so many young people want to participate, but they just don't know when, they don't know how. And so what this bill does is create an opportunity for high school students to register to vote in their schools. And that makes the process more accessible, and just creates a space where young people can engage in where they already are. Schools are trusted sites where young people, where we can reach almost every young person. So this bill makes sure they're not just learning about democracy in theory, but also getting connected to it in a real and tangible way. We know that when young people register and engage with the civic process early, the more likely they are to be long-term voters. And so what this bill really is about is, one, to honor the legacy of Reverend Jackson, and to honor his dream of young people having a voter registration card in one hand, and a high school diploma in the other. But it's also about strengthening our democracy from the ground up, making sure that young people have the resources they need to engage and to answer those questions that they may have.
Okay, I have run into Black women and young Black men in particular, and some young Black women who are for Donald Trump. What do you say to them? And have you had that experience?
I definitely have had that experience. And what I would normally say is just know your history. Know your history. It's easy to say these things if you're not aware of what our people fought for, when you don't really understand the past and what Donald Trump stands for. If you look him up in the past, you can see where he stood on issues where our people weren't concerned, and issues like the Central Park Five, how his family treated Black and brown people, especially the poorest, and exploited their labor. I would say to really just get educated, and really try to look at what are the things that directly affect you. And I know that sometimes when we talk to young people and we talk about these large systems, it can be kind of hard to understand how does this affect you in your day-to-day life. But once people really do the research, you can see how the policies that Donald Trump is working on can sometimes be negatively impactful to our communities.
Yes, Devorah, what do you tell people African Americans who are pushing for Donald Trump? And I'm telling you, I've run across a lot of them.
Yes, and I have too. And interestingly, during the presidential election in 2024, I ran across people coast to coast who were in support of who lived under an authoritarian regime and were proud to vote for Donald Trump. I would suggest to you that there is a disconnect of people really understanding what our democracy means, what it represents, and how valuable it is to us, and what makes our form of governance different from any other government around the world, even any other democracy around the world. But do we really understand what it means when the citizens have a say in the matter? That through your ballot, that you are actually able to dictate what policies get implemented, how, when, why, and where. And it's when we usurp that authority and that possibility and just ferret it away that we leave ourselves suspect and vulnerable to what it is that we're experiencing now. In 2024, they talked about it being the most consequential election of our lifetime. Now we're living through the consequences of that decision or non-decision. Let's keep in mind that there were 80 million, I stand corrected, I found out last weekend at Bishop Barber's conference, there are 90 million registered voters who opted not to vote in 2024.
Yes.
So there is a tremendous disconnect between the people that are voting and those who are not voting, and understanding why their vote is important and why their vote matters and how it does make our democracy work. Our democracy works when the people work it. When we don't work it, we get people in office that want to turn it into an authoritarian government. Understand what that means. So the call to action now is for individuals who believe in a representative government, having a voice in what happens and occurs in our country, for you to stand up, to rise up, get registered to vote. You must be registered in order to even get into the game of politics. In order to cast a ballot, you have to be registered. Get registered and then vote. Make sure you vote. For the first time in this country, I think I hazard to say, Chinta, we have a unique opportunity to reframe our government the way that we desire it to be. Create the America that we desire to create based on our voice out the ballot box. But you must be registered and you must vote on November the 3rd to make that happen.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Stamps, are you still there?
I am. Hold on.
So, and I want to commend you, first of all, for taking time to be on the case, even though you're at a prom for students. So I just love you for doing that. What do you think about, and have you run across African Americans who profess their love for this man, loyalty to this man?
You know, my response to those people is this. Harriet freed 300 slaves, and she said she could have freed 300 more had they known they were slaves. I do not trifle in the ignorant. We don't have time. If they don't understand what's at stake, if they are okay with a pedophile who had 34 count felony, who has been bankrupt 6 times, who has not paid people their wages, who has done every dastardly thing you can do, and they still call him a good Christian and a good American, and they think that's okay, they too far gone for me to waste my oxygen dealing with that. That is why I have an emphasis on young people. I cannot trifle. There is too much at stake to spend time engaging in that conversation. And they want us to. They want us to stay distracted. And they want us to make us believe that those numbers are bigger than they are. And this is what I tell Black folks. You don't ever need everybody. Like, we need everybody. No, the hell we don't. You need the few that's serious. You don't need everybody. Stop thinking you need everybody. You think everybody participated in the damn civil rights movement? No, they did not. It was some Black people like, Y'all better get away from that old Malcolm. Y'all better get away from that Martin Luther. He is dangerous. We don't have time for that, y'all. And so I don't waste time with that. If you think, those are the same field niggas we've been talking about for years. They didn't go away. And that is the conditioning of oppression. That is the conditioning of colonization. Of course you're going to have people that love their slave master. Of course.
All right.
But do we spend the time and energy trying to retrain that? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, sir. So I don't entertain it because the fight that we have right now is too vital. The time is too critical. And the enemy is at the gate. And they want us to stay distracted. And so once you understand that that is a part of the game, serious people ain't having that conversation. Mm-hmm. I only engage myself with serious people because I'm a serious woman. Mm-hmm. So I don't trifle with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're gonna have to take a break. We'll be back with more of On the Case right after.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to get out of here. Okay. It's been lovely, but it's getting louder. They're in the middle of a shift change, I believe. Yes. And the owner has been beyond considerate, but I think I've overstayed my welcome in their space.
We thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Oh, thank you all. And to the point that Devorah made, thank you, Chinta. I remember your name being a household name with my mother, and my mother's been gone 30 years, August 28th of this year.
Wow.
And so thank you for being a legacy journalist and continuing to breathe life into our stories. And thank you, Freddie, for all of the work that you're doing to bring up the end of that boat, which is our young people. We gonna do it.
Yes, we are.
We gonna do it. And you gotta make them believe that they can win. When people know they can win, they have a different kind of fight. We gotta change the way we telling this story. And we gotta tell people we can win. We won before, and we're gonna win again. If we weren't winning, they wouldn't bother us.
Yes. Okay.
You know anybody that bothers the losers?
Don't forget to send the QR code.
Yeah, well, the QR code is right behind me. It's right here. Okay, and if you can see that, and you can go to knowyourpowervote.us, knowyourpowervote.us, because this election is all about us, and can use the acronym KYPvote.us. Right at the top of the page, you can register. You scroll down a little bit, you're going to see a little tab that says QR codes to states all across the union where you can register to vote. Scroll down a little bit more to the red section, and you'll be able to submit a letter of support for House Bill 4339. We need you to do that. We need everyone listening to this podcast to certainly take the time to send a pre-written, you don't even have to write it unless you want to, a pre-written letter of support of House Bill 4339 that goes to the Senate this month.
All right, we're going to be back in a moment right after this. Thank you very much, Devorah.
Great day. It's your girl Asada here to introduce a new female solution show called Asada Says. That's right. Every month we're going to talk about everything I am, from cryptocurrency and financial security to good health and parenting strategies. Come on and talk with me every Tuesday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And let's do that thing the way Asada says it should be done. See you then. Peace, right here on the Female Solution.
Welcome to Master Force with Mushim Suit. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page, as we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force. Our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
my little brother, in which we're doing this documentary for, Douglas Robinson, Your Death Will Not Be in Vain.
He was a heck of a great dude. And I love Doug. Doug loved me.
Just being around him, he had a good spirit. He was a healing person.
They are there.
Get SROs back.
When you give to the poor,
should not be forced out of their neighborhoods when it goes through a period of transformation.
Because there are too many people who are losing their homes to taxes because they can't pay a $1,000 tax bill.
Okay, we're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case. And now we're talking just to Devorah Crable. She's president of Know Your Power Vote. And Freddie, say your last name for me. No, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Derosiers.
Okay. All right. So now, speaking of homeless, Mayor Washington did target the homeless people and got them the right to vote. Are you doing the same thing, either one of you? Devorah?
For the homeless?
Yes.
I have not worked with the homeless directly. Both myself and Freddie are working with the incarcerated populations and those who are going through reentry. But I have not dealt directly with the homeless populations, but certainly they are a population that we need to pay attention to. When we think in terms of America being available to everyone and everybody, we have to be inclusive of the whole body politic of this nation. And the homeless are certainly a critical part of that, especially when you think in terms of most people just living 2 paychecks away from being homeless. The people that you see walking around in Whole Foods today, or walking around in the health club that you exercise at every day, might be on the streets tomorrow and still showing up at that health club because they have that membership that allows them to go in and take a shower. But they aren't talking about the hardships that they are experiencing. And I promise you, under the economic conditions that we're dealing with now under this administration, we're going to start to see more and more of that bubbling up, and you're going to see it. Everyone will see it, feel it, and experience it. So don't turn your back on the homeless. You have to embrace the reality that we're in now and figure out strategies for addressing that problem, and certainly giving them the voice to vote.
Absolutely, and especially how Trump has treated them like garbage, just about, especially in Washington, D.C. And then the Republicans, whom I call his co-conspirators, have passed laws saying that you can get arrested if you're found sleeping in the park or in a parked car. So, Freddie, are you working with the homeless too?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are you working with the homeless?
So we haven't directly focused on that work, but we are in coalition with the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, who are doing really important advocacy work in that space. We know that housing is a huge issue, especially for young people. When we're dealing, with housing instability, impacts everything, including your ability to engage, civically. And so that's something that we see in our work, especially too with folks who are incarcerated and folks who are coming home. Access to stable housing is a huge barrier to reentry, and it's all connected. So if people don't have their basic needs met, it makes it that much harder for them to, plug into their communities and participating in democracy.
Okay, and are you also working with the movie stars? Trump is good for bringing in, especially Black rappers and actresses, which is amazing. But are you trying to draw them into your campaign as well? Devorah?
Go ahead, Devorah.
Go ahead.
Freddie?
What I will say is that a lot of our focus is on regular, everyday people. They're the ones who show up They're the ones who are the closest to the issue and thus have the most expertise. I think there is a value to engaging people who have large platforms, celebrities. But right now, most of our focus has been regular folks.
And I would have to concur, Chinta, and I think we can take a page out of the playbook of Harold Washington.
Yes.
And he certainly gave us the quintessential example of what civic engagement in action, where he really demonstrated the power of the people and what it is required in terms of not only registering and voting, but building coalitions and moving as a movement, as a unified force to achieve specific goals. And we saw that, we learned that from Harold Washington. So we don't want people to think that, and it might be part of the problem of what we're living through now, thinking that the democracy and the democratic process is reserved for the few, the celebrities. And now we're watching the theater of politics now play out before our very eyes, who could ask for a higher price ticket. And certainly we are paying for it. But we want people to understand that the power of this country lies in the everyday people's hands, as Freddie has just shared. It's the common man, the common voice, the common action, the action of the common person that makes a difference in this democracy. So we're asking people to, reclaim your power, reclaim your strength. And inside of those stories, it's not about the big lofty stories of the who's who and the what's what, but it's the everyday story that makes a difference here. I just recently did a piece with Harold Washington Legacy Committee, and we had Dick Simpson, the political scientist, well, and I was around during Harold Washington's era. And we also had Dilla, Sherman Dilla Thomas, who offered his political insights from the younger generation. It was a great conversation. But it's inside of those kinds of conversations that you have at your dining room table, the people that you're talking to out in the park, now that the weather is better and you can walk the dogs and the cats and swing sets and play chess in the park, and to start having those conversations. We have to make this a conversation that is top of mind and part of everyday conversation. Being civically engaged isn't something we reserve just for election day. It is something that goes on all year long. We have to hold those elected officials accountable. Don't let them win popularity contests by being able to vote out of precinct by asking all of their friends to show up and vote, knowing that they'll win. It's incumbent upon each and one of us as individual voters to say, I care enough. My voice does matter. My ballot does matter. I'm going to the polls, and guess what? I'm going to take my kids with me, even though they're not of voting age, so that they know what the process is. This is what we do as citizens who are responsible and are claiming responsibility for our place in this country that is known as agency. Having agency, having a voice, having a stakeholder interest in this nation. It's in your hand and it's in your ballot, which reflects as your voice.
Se puede. Yes, we can.
Yes,
but I still want to know if you're going to bring in or draw in, at least do a commercial with Kamala Harris.
Well, I think if we can get some star power never hurts. It never hurts. But and can we not also acknowledge Reverend Jackson, right, Freddie? I am somebody, which is at the core of this bill that we're running through, that made it through the House and is now headed to the Senate. We want these young people to know that they are somebody. And Freddie just did, through Chicago Votes, this wonderful voter registration drive where over 2 days they registered over 1,000 students from all across the city. And they stood out there and shouted, I am somebody. So they get it. So now we got to make sure that there's a dividend, there's a payoff for them so that they can see how this works and that it will continue to work in their favor so long as they make it work.
Freddie, you registered 1,000 people, your organization? When was this?
This was right before the primary election on March 17th. I believe the week before, we partner with high schools in the city to take their students to go vote for the first time. And we make sure they have the resources that they need to cast an informed ballot. We make sure they feel celebrated. And a lot of times when we talk to young people, they say, it's their first time voting. It kind of takes the pressure off because they're with their peers. They're doing it in a setting where they feel celebrated. And so that's our program called Parade to the Polls. And we've been running that program for over a decade now. And I really want to acknowledge Reverend Jackson, because before his death, he attended almost all of our large Parades at the Polls. He attended our one in 2024, the year before that. And so he was a huge supporter of young people getting out to the polls for his entire life. Even, as far as coming up to the most recent one, like I mentioned, in 2014. And I just really want to focus on his legacy, because it's really the foundation of our work at Chicago Votes. He really pushed the idea that democracy should include everyone, especially those people who are considered the lowliest among us, the people who are in the margins. That includes young people, people who are incarcerated, people, immigrants, LGBTQ folks. He understood the value of every person being able to express their voice and their power at the ballot box. And so when we talk about this bill, and we talk about the actions that we're doing at Chicago Votes, registering those thousands young people, or at least 1,000 young people, to go vote for the first time, it builds upon his legacy of wanting people to become lifelong civic engagement, folks. And so just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge his legacy and his impact on the reason why we do the work we do.
That's great. So now, do you think that the course civics should be restored in schools, and would that help in getting young people involved in politics and registering to vote, of course? Devorah?
Absolutely. This bill does just that. Please appreciate and understand that civics is currently taught in schools. And what this bill will do, it puts more fire under their heels to make sure that they're diligent in making sure that our young people are properly educated. And when they graduate, they are fully prepared and equipped to be participants in the democratic process as just progressive and as citizens that are able to contribute not only to their lives, but to their communities and to the country as a whole. So this is what this bill is all about. So if any lesson is to be learned from it, is that, again, I can't say it enough, that this is our land, this is my land, this is your land. And together we're the ones that are the glue that make it all come together and make it happen as a democracy. And appreciate that this democracy, they call it the big experiment. It is evolving. This isn't the terminal point. It's organic. So it's always evolving. And so that's why we have amendments who are able to shift and change. And I would suggest to you, and I've said this to the horror of some people, I think a constitutional convention is in the not too distant future, where we might have to reconsider this whole platform again, but still allowing people to have a voice and whatever that's going to look like and be like.
So I want to know, when did they restore civics? Because they took it out before.
Oh, they still have a very lively civics education division going out through, especially in Chicago. And you may have heard even the governor has year before, I think it was, he cleared time for students to leave school just so they can go and vote, got them 2 hours to go out and vote. So those individuals or those school systems that are being lax with it, maybe what you're referring to is it's not mandatory, but it's mandated, but not mandatory, that they will make it more mandatory and understand the significance and the importance of these young people understanding what it means to be civically engaged, to be empowered citizens.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you too about this drafting business. December 1st, the men between, I think, the ages of 18 and 25 must be registered to vote. How do you feel about that?
Freddie, you want to take
and also, is it still legal to be a conscientious objector to the war? One of the listeners asked that.
Well, Trump makes up his rules as we go, right? So it probably is illegal, okay, in Trump land, but certainly under your right to free speech, you can be an objector, a conscientious objector. I am appalled. I am appalled that we no longer have a Department of Defense. We have a Department of War. It just gives you it's just a glaring light of the mindset of this administration. It's about crush, kill, and destroy, be it here at home, domestically, or abroad. So we have to be very, very careful about the choices that we make now and the decisions that we make on November the 3rd. It will be a critical difference. It will make the difference as to whether or not our young children, our boys, and they'll probably be the girls as well at some point, but certainly our young men going off to war. And as Commissioner Stamp said, 9 times out of 10, those individuals would be the Black and the brown young people of America going to fight for a country that has already marginalized them, has disenfranchised them, discriminates against them, and now they want you to fight for their right to have the privilege of being American while stepping on your toes and on your neck. So understand what is happening, as Commissioner Sam said, and we have to listen intently, and be bold in our action. And the boldest action that you can take that is legal is to go to the polls and vote.
That's very true. Go ahead, Freddie.
Probably have some insights because she works directly with these young people. What are they saying?
Yeah, well, they say so many things. And I actually love this, connection and through line when we talk about something like the draft or selective service registration, because, young people are already expected to engage with the system in certain ways when they turn 18. So we're asking young people to take on, these kinds of responsibilities. So it only makes sense that we're fully making sure they're fully prepared and empowered to engage in democracy through things like voting. And so, that's what this work is really about, making civic participation accessible and consistent and like real for young people, knowing that things just like we talked about selective service and people who support different politicians, these are the decisions that are directly affecting young people, right? The fact that they are, getting prepared to have to potentially go to war, that is a result of the people that we vote for directly. And so I know also somebody had a question about conscientious objectors. And I think Devorah hit the nail right on the head, especially that is technically supposed to be a right. We know this administration can do whatever they want based on those rules. And so people could technically apply for that status. And if approved, they could be assigned like an alternative for civilian service. But it really depends on, what the prerogative is of this administration.
All right, and so Trump wants to get black soldiers now, but he also wants to erase our history. He erased my cousin's history file that was on the Department of Defense for 60 years, if not more than that. He was the first African American to have received the Medal of Honor during the Vietnam War. He spotted a live grenade on October 25th, 1965, grabbed it, put it on his stomach, allowing it to explode. No one will know that. The young people won't know that because he removed the file. How do you feel about Trump removing the files of African Americans from all federal websites because of DEI? Freddie?
So, Chinta, you're going to make me cry. Freddie, you're going to have to take the lead. I'm an Army brat. My father served 2 terms in Vietnam, 2 terms in Korea. He was willing to put his life on the line for this country. And he had to return to face Jim Crow, racism, discrimination, returning to a society that he stood in the face of no agreement on any level. But yet he was still willing to put his life on the line for this country, as did that soldier. And I do remember that story. This is why we have to stand up, rise up, and vote to stop this madness. We must stop it, and it is our hands. It is our responsibility. It is within our capacity to stop this movement of hatred, of discrimination, of making a decision of who lives and who dies. If we're talking about an administration who is willing to send in all kinds of troops and helicopters to save one soldier after annihilating millions of people in the Gaza Strip and in Iran, this is the mentality that we're working up against. So anything that has a skin color that is not of his, they don't care about. Understand and appreciate that. And if you believe in DEI, if you believe in Dr. King's vision and his dream of this being a land for everyone, then stand up, let your voice be heard. This is not the time to sit down and to be silent. This is not the time to sit out on an election. Now is the time for your voice to be heard.
And I wanted to ask you too that today he has ordered the firing of the executions to be done by firing squads now. And how do you feel about that?
That's an abomination. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's absolutely insane. and inhumane and barbaric. Is this what we're going to reduce our society to?
Yep.
Understand, we have evolved as a society, as a nation, well beyond that. That this is akin to being lynching, and I guess he'll be doing that next, saying, let's not only have the shooting squad, but let's lynch people as well, have public lynchings. This is where it is all headed. You all, come on, stand up, realize what is going on. This is like no joke, no kidding time. And that is just horrible that we have allowed this madness to continue for as long as it has. But again, the only way that we can reverse it is for us to stand up, to vote to change it.
Absolutely, and that is voting against his co-conspirators too, because they're the ones who are allowing it. Freddie, how do you feel about this firing squad by executions by firing squad? How do you feel about that?
I feel awful about it. I think it's important to look at how the death penalty and state violence have been historically used against communities of color, specifically Black people, and how it's disproportionately, we've been disproportionately impacted by the criminal legal system, including, when sentencing. So I think there's a deep historical context here when we look at, this decision to say that, death by firing squad, and we look at the terror of lynching, are both part of a broader history in this country where Black communities have experienced, unequal treatment under the systems of punishment. And so, we have to talk about fairness, history, and whether the system is applied equitably, and we know that it's not. So when I think about this, I just think about how this is going to affect, the lowliest among us, people of color. And, we see how our country can treat people who aren't a part of our country when they are abroad. So just knowing that this is a use of state violence that we're actually sanctioning from the highest office, makes me feel disgusting.
Yes. And the Southern Law Poverty Center, he's suing them, and it's because of what they said against him. So if you speak out against this president, he's going to sue you, including those in the media.
Yeah.
Devorah?
Yeah, he shut down the media, and he will continue to do so. So we have to be careful. You have to be careful, Chinta. We all must be careful.
I'm not afraid of him. Absolutely, I'm not afraid of that little man, that adjudicated rapist. I don't know how any woman in the world could vote for him or support him.
Yeah. And as Commissioner Stamp said, it is women, Black women in particular, that will be the difference, and certainly have the power to make that difference. So I hope that the women heard her and will respond in kind.
All right, so I want to thank both of you, Freddie, and I can't say your last name. I'm going to try myself. Derosiers.
Derosiers. You got it. You're close enough.
Okay, and Devorah, Crable, president of Know Your Power Vote, and Freddie, you are working with the Chicago Votes. I admire both of you for doing this. And if I can do anything to help, please call on me, all right?
You've done a tremendous amount this evening, and we thank you for this opportunity, and look forward to continuing the conversations.
Thank you so very much. We'll see you next Friday, 7 o'clock live.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for watching On the Case.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.